No. 11 The sparks of black. Clang. That wasn't very nice. You could have poked an eye out with that. Said as I slid my katana back into its sheath after deflecting a speeding knife. Standing behind me was Rockman, his face covered in sweat, and a worried and pained expression settled over his face. That expression quickly changed to surprise when he noticed my sudden appearance in the extended back alley path he was running through. He stood stock still as his gaze shifted from me to his pursuer, Stendhal, who was now staring daggers at me from the other end of the alley. +10 SP. You dare get in the way of true judgment? Stendhal said as he reached over to his katana. He unsheathed his dangerously sharp weapon and pointed it toward me in one swift move. You must be this villain's partner. Very well then, I'll be sure to take you both down. Villain. Listen here, Tuxedo Mask. I pointed a finger over at Rockman. I don't really care about or know who this guy is. Then why get in my way? Stendhal hissed, his patience running low. I rolled my eyes under the darkness of my hood and then moved my hand to point at him. Because of you. You see, there's this thing I'm trying to get. And so far, all the clowns of fought couldn't give me the push I need to get it. You, on the other hand, have some pretty impressive moves. I drew out my katana and held it in both hands beside my head. So what I want from you is a good fight. +15 SP. Enough of this charade. I'll cut you down and then move on to the one behind you. Stendhal growled out and rushed at me with incredible speed. His katana pulled back and ready to slice me in two. This is my chance. I have to limit myself to only my pure strength, speed, skills, and CE. No curse techniques. I have to push myself to land a black flash. I dashed forward as well, ready to meet my opponent head-on. The clash of metal echoed through the alley as Stendhal and I engaged in an intense sword fight. Our katanas clashed and sparked as we moved with incredible speed and precision. Each strike was met with a swift parry or a skillful dodge, creating a mesmerizing dance of blades. This guy's good. If it weren't for both Yuta's swordsmanship skills and Maki's weapons specialist skills, I doubt I'd last this long. At some point during our fight, Rockman had decided it was time to get the hell out of Dodge and made a break for it, leaving me and Stendhal alone. Stendhal's formidable skills pushed me to the limit, but I matched his every move with determination and focus. Our intense exchange of blows continued. However, Stendhal was slowly gaining ground on me. His bigger size and strength were giving him the edge. It was only thanks to my CE and my natural strength that I was even able to put up a fight. You're skilled. I'll give you that. Stendhal said as he deflected my horizontal strike. But I'm stronger. +25 SP. Crap baskets. In a move that took me by surprise, Stendhal closed the distance between us and kicked my stomach with his foot. I grunted as I slid back on the ground, only to look up at the descending blade of his katana over my head. Moving on instinct, I raised my weapon above my head and deflected his attack away, causing him to lose balance momentarily. Now's my chance. I let my katana fall onto the ground as I prepped my CE into my right fist. Stendhal looked down at me and jumped back just as I was about to land a CE-enhanced punch at his stomach. Shit. As he moved away, he threw two knives at me with precision and speed. I raised my right arm and used it to block the knives from stabbing into my torso. With a wince, I ripped them out and threw the knives at the ground. How foolish. You've abandoned your weapon in hopes of hitting me with your fist. Perhaps you're not as skilled as I originally thought. Stendhal said as he leaned forward. Now then, it's time for evil to be cut down. +15 SP. Stendhal, with his razor-sharp katana, moved right at me with incredible speed, aiming to strike me down while I was unarmed. I glared at him as I narrowly dodged and weaved away from his non-stop lethal strikes with calculated and graceful movements. It was taking everything I had to not get sliced or skewered with every attack Stendhal executed. Despite my efforts, Stendhal's formidable skills were quickly pushing me to my limits. I was growing tired, and my speed was beginning to drop. Stendhal noticed this and capitalized on my drop of speed. He slid his left foot out and stepped on my foot, causing me to trip up. Swiping his sword diagonally, Stendhal finally managed to land a cut on my body. Seeing my blood, Stendhal smirked under his mask and spun on his hips to cut off my head. His foot was still pressing down on my own, keeping me in place with his greater strength. Shit. Dodge. Dodge, there's no time or space to dodge. Time seemed to slow to a crawl as I watched Stendhal's razor-sharp sword grow closer and closer to my neck. I tightened my hands into fists as I glared at the man in front of me and charged CE into my fists. I'm not going to lose to you. I refuse to lose. It was at that moment that I finally felt it. Black. Just as Stendhal's blade was a millimeter away from my neck, I landed a punch straight into Stendhal's face while applying my cursed energy within 0.000001 seconds, causing a distortion in space around both Stendhal and me as arcs of red and black sparked to life. Flash. Stendhal's mask shattered on impact as his body flew back several feet in a violent spin. I winced as a long, shallow, bleeding cut now adorned the side of my neck. Despite the pain, I felt my mind grow clearer than ever before. Plus 100 SP. I understand now, I muttered as I looked down at my hands. I clenched them tightly and looked over at Stendhal. An aura of CE quickly grew around my body. It's just like Toto said. All this time, I've just been using CE without truly understanding it, like a novice chef using ingredients without any purpose. But now, it's so clear to me. Stand up, Stendhal. Let me show you what 120% of my potential truly looks like, I said as Stendhal finally managed to stand to his feet. His face was profusely bleeding, and his nose was broken. Plus 50 SP. Your conviction is unshakable, Stendhal muttered as he held his bloody face with his hand. He was swaying where he stood as his knees shook. He then raised his hand to show off a bloodied knife. But this fight ends here. I watched in confusion as he raised the knife to his mouth. In an instant, my eyes grew wide in realization. No way, are you? A long tongue slipped out his mouth and gave the bloody knife a long lick. Gay. I felt all control of my body leave me as I collapsed on the floor in a heap, causing my hood to fall off my head. I tried to move, but the most my body would do was tremble in exertion. Despite that, I spun my head to glare over the man who would one day be Stain. Why, you bastard? What the hell? What's Stain doing here dressed like that? Did I miss his backstory or something? Stendhal fell to one knee as he looked over at me with a shocked expression before it turned into a wide, bloodthirsty smile. You have potential, child. That is why I will not extinguish your light today. Our fight has taught me many things. I'm sure we will meet in the future to finish today's battle. Farewell. Plus 100 SP. I watched helplessly as Stendhal turned around and walked away slowly with a wobble until he disappeared into the darkness. I continued to try and move my body but found the task to be impossible. Flowing red scale. With my technique active, I slowly pulled my hood over my head and began to push my body up. As I moved, it felt like each of my limbs was strapped to 226 kilogram weights, making the normally easy task of standing a Herculean task. Damn. Now I have to wait for his quirk's effect to wear off. Just great. Dash. Thank you for the 300 PS, here's your bonus chapter. Alright, everyone. Here are the results of the romance poll. This should be obvious, but you can't vote more than once. So repeated or spammed votes don't count. You know who I'm talking about. Harem, 36. Single route, 50. And so, the single route has won over the harem route. Another thing that surprised me was the amount of love people have for Hatsume Mei, the crazy inventor otaku. Her name came up 31 times for her to be the main love interest, making her the winner. In second place with 8 votes was Hado Najire. While she won't be my focus, I'll give her some attention as well. However, I do want to preface that the romance aspect of the story will take a back seat. Sorry if that disappoints some of you, but I rather focus on the plot and the fights. Thanks to everyone who voted. Until next time. 45 comments, 0 vote. No. 12 hidden inventory. AN. Happy Halloween, everyone. Here's a free bonus chapter as my treat to you all. Dash. You have pulled Itadori Yuji's pain tolerance. Rank. Silver. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not. I watched as the small plastic prize ball in my hand slowly shimmered away once I received my reward. In an instant, the slight pain on my still healing neck had become a lot more bearable. With enough focus, I pushed the pain to the back of my mind as if I wasn't even hurt at all. Even so, the injury still stung. I was sitting in my small room, loose papers and art supplies strewn around, as two laptops sat on my desk. Unlike usual, there were no clones slaving away today. The reason was the large stack of manuscripts and a year's worth of weekly chapters sitting in several folders on a cluttered desk. Safe to say, I was extremely ahead of schedule. I was even in the negotiating process of selling the first entries to both Harry Potter and Star Wars. It wouldn't be long before my name blew up in this world, well, at least my pen name. Use 700 SP. I said as I twisted the gacha's dial. After a few seconds, a new prize ball popped out of the machine. I hated to admit it, but I was now thoroughly addicted to gambling away my points. Hopefully, my new addition stayed to this gacha machine and not to the blood-sucking casinos this world has to offer. It killed me at times not to go all in, but I knew I had to be careful with my points. Otherwise, I'd keep hoarding more useless junk from the JJK world. It got to the point that I had to rent an entire storage unit to store all my useless junk. I already had 10 pairs of Gojo sunglasses. I didn't need more. Even if they were from a designer brand. You have pulled the inventory curse. Rank Silver. Seiwa. I watched with curiosity as cursed energy began to gather in the space in front of me from seemingly nowhere. After a few seconds, a purple worm-like creature appeared in the air. Before it could fall on the ground, I caught it in my arms. Huh, so I can win cursed spirits as well. Neat. Does that mean I can pull Rika as well? I said as the worm-like cursed spirit looked at me with a derpy expression. Now then, are you loyal to me or what? The cursed spirit nodded as if it fully understood me. I grinned and lifted it close to my body so it could wrap itself around my torso like it did with Toji. Awesome. I'm going to call you Zyko. Yup. I patted Zyko's head with a smile, causing the spirit to hum. Zyko it is. I walked over and reached under my bed to grab my only two weapons, Kusakabe's katana and Slaughter Demon. I lifted them towards Zyko's mouth and watched in fascination as he swallowed them both easily, causing them both to vanish seemingly. I then reached into its mouth and pulled out Slaughter Demon. Now I can always walk around with my weapons. How convenient. You wouldn't happen to have Toji's arsenal, now, would you? I asked Zyko. The spirit looked confused and shook its head. You don't know who Toji is? I wonder if this gacha system clears your memories when it brought you here. This only begs the question of whether you were Toji or Geto's spirit that I snatched or if you're an exact copy made by the system itself. Before I could think any deeper into the possible mechanics of my gacha system, the alarm on my phone went off. I reached over to my desk and hit the snooze button on my phone. Today was the day I would finally meet my editor for my TMNT manga. She had been pestering and repeatedly asking for an in-person meeting after the sudden rise of my story's popularity. Apparently, communication over email and texts wasn't good enough for her. Without wasting any time, I quickly used my remaining 5 pulls. Sadly, I didn't win any more decent rewards, just a bunch of more useless junk like Miwa's black tie and Miguel's funny hat. Let's get a move on, Zyko, I said, walking out of my room to begin walking through the orphanage's hallways. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a pair of round sunglasses to place over my eyes. Hopefully, this won't take too long. XXX. General Pav. The aroma of freshly ground coffee beans filled the air as Mikami Asuka, a red-haired woman with blue eyes dressed in a yellow cardigan jacket and black khaki pants, sat at a cozy corner table in the bustling cafe. She watched as the barista expertly steamed milk for her latte, creating a mesmerizing swirl in the cup. The gentle chatter of other patrons provided a soothing background noise, and the warm glow of the afternoon sun streamed through the large windows, casting a golden hue over the entire space. Asuka took a moment to savor the tranquility of the cafe, which was a welcome break from her usual hectic days. She took a sip of her latte. The rich, velvety flavor danced on her taste buds, bringing a contented smile to her face. Asuka had been working in the manga industry for the past 2 years now, so her experience in the field was somewhat lacking. Despite that, she was hungry and desperate to secure her spot at the top of the industry. This meant she had to find the next big story to shake the manga world. That was easier said than done. Even after 1 year of searching and interviewing several hopeful future mangakas, Asuka came up empty-handed. All of the stories and one-shots she's seen were generic and boring. There was nothing new and fresh. Nothing that would catch the reader's attention. That was until she received an email from someone by the name of Gerger. This wasn't unusual by any means. Asuka's email was constantly receiving messages from wannabe artists who wanted her to take a chance on them and their works. But the message she received from Gerger was different. His message was short and to the point. Read this and let me know when we can start. Gerger's message was one of extreme confidence. Some wouldn't be remiss even to say a bit egotistical. But when Asuka took a look at the attached files, she couldn't help but be unimpressed with the art quality. The drawings were decent, but nothing impressive. But they didn't have to be. No, what stood out like a star in the sky was the story. The tale of 4 mutant ninja brothers who fight against evil and protect the innocent from the shadows as unsung heroes was attention-grabbing. It was also the very story she's been in search of this entire time. Asuka wasn't like most people. Most people wanted to see larger-than-life heroes performing grand heroic feats while looking handsome, beautiful, and human-like. It wasn't a giant secret that the media didn't like to show off those with mutant-type quirks. No, heroes like Gang Orca, Wolf Man, Super Snake Woman, and many more pro-mutant heroes weren't exactly pushed to be on the front pages or main time slots on television or movies. Even in today's day and age, people still can't differentiate between those who look different and monsters or villains. However, a story like the one of the Turtle Brothers could be the push to help society change. Even if it's a small push. So Asuka instantly agreed to take on Gerger and submit his story to Jump. The bigwigs in charge almost didn't accept running the story, but Asuka wasn't one to give up so easily. She pushed and pushed the bigwigs until they agreed to give the story a shot. And to everyone's surprise, except her, Gerger's story was an instant success. The readers couldn't get enough of the tales of the 4 Ninja Turtle brothers and their rat father. Week after week, each edition of Jump had massive sales, a large part due to Gerger's story. You can also imagine her shock when she found out that Gerger was also a writer as well. He has written the recently awarded New York Times bestseller The Hunger Games. Asuka had asked to meet Gerger on several occasions, but the mangaka was adamant about maintaining their communication over the internet or by phone. But after working alongside him for several weeks, Asuka wouldn't take no for an answer anymore. Fine, we can meet at this cafe in Musudafu then. That's how Asuka ended up in a lovely cafe in the city of Musudafu. Her face was eager and impatient to meet the man who did so much in so little time. Glancing around, Asuka noticed a group of young teenagers engaged in lively conversation at a nearby table, their laughter adding a cheerful energy to the atmosphere. The aroma of freshly baked pastries wafted from the display case, tempting her with their decadent sweetness. It's almost time. Where is he? Asuka asked as she took another sip of her drink. Lost in her thoughts, Asuka failed to notice a young black-haired boy dressed in a black hoodie and white shirt as he looked down at his phone and then at her repeatedly. With a shrug, he walked over and sat in the chair opposite of her nonchalantly. Noticing the weird kid sitting in front of her, Asuka raised an annoyed eyebrow at him. Hey, kid, you lost or something? Listen, I don't have time for you. Can you go bother someone else? Kid. Lady, I'm 12. So, a kid, Asuka said with a sigh. She then made shoo-shoo motions at her uninvited guest with an eye roll. Do you want some money or something? Here's 500 yen. Now go away. The youth wearing sunglasses took the bill with a shrug and slid it into his pocket. Still, he didn't move and stared at Asuka with a slight grin. The red-haired woman slowly began to feel an odd feeling from the kid in front of her. Almost negative. This caused Asuka to slowly slide back into the back of her chair. Her reaction caused the black-haired boy's grin to stretch wider in amusement. Ah, I have to go now. Asuka muttered as she began to gather her stuff to leave the table. Really? The young boy said in an amused tone. I thought you wanted to meet me, Mikami-san. In an instant, Asuka froze and turned to him with slowly widening eyes. Gerger, sensei. In the flesh. A few moments later, a long, hushed, high-pitched whine filled the cafe. 31 comments 0 vote. No. 13 a bitter pill. The city of Musudafu was a special city. It was your run-of-the-mill city located in the Shizuoka prefecture. Around a 2-hour train ride from the orphanage I live at. However, there were several key locations ripe with potential points waiting to be made within Musudafu. Locations like Midoriya's apartment, Takoba Municipal Beach Park, Teituan Station, the Todoroki household, Aldera Junior High, and finally, UA High School. But I wasn't here for any of those locations today. No, I was here to visit my old fellow orphan and friend. Hayes Keiko. This must be it. I looked up from the GPS on my phone at the impressive-looking two-story home. A bag of fancy cookies in my right hand. Not bad. Zyko grunted from his spot on my shoulder as it also looked over the house. My amusing meeting with my editor, thankfully, only lasted 2 hours. Asuka was a rather fun person to mess with. Unsurprisingly, my young age had thrown her for a loop. While watching her stutter and apologize for being rude was funny, she recovered quickly, and we both got to business. She had tried to sneakily impose some story beats and suggestions for my story, as all manga editors try to do, but I quickly shut that shit down and told her what my plans for my story were. Asuka was surprised that I only had so many chapters in mind for the duration of my story and that I didn't want it to run for years on end. Asuka immediately tried to dissuade me from this due to the sheer popularity of my story. However, when I mentioned that I had another story planned once TMNT was done, she quickly changed her tune and peppered me with questions. This version of Japan wasn't ready for Dragon Ball Z to drop. This one's for you, Toriyama. Your legend will live on in this uncultured world. What do we got here? I stepped forward and read the nameplate by the house gate. Yoshiyuki, it read. I reached out and pressed the doorbell on the house's stone gate pillar and waited. As I waited, I looked over to the house next door, where a black crow was perched on its roof. I nodded at Crow Megumi, causing him to nod back. From my calls over the years with Keiko, she had told me that her new family was apparently super wonderful and friendly. They had been very supportive and loving of her. I was happy for her. I truly was. She was a sweet girl who had gone through hell very early on. She deserves some happiness. It wasn't until recently that she insisted I come and meet her family. Something I had been pushing off for as long as I could. Not because I didn't want to. Of course not. No, it was due to how busy I've been lately in my nightly escapades. But Keiko had finally had enough and all but ordered me to come today. Stubborn woman, child. Sue-chan. Keiko ran out of her front door and swung open the front gate of her house to jump into my arms. She had a large smile on her face as she tried to squeeze the life out of my body. You're here. You're finally here. You've gotten taller. +5 SP. Calm down, Keiko, I said with a small smile, causing her to laugh. You'll crush my gift. The excitable blue-haired girl jumped back and looked down at the blue bag in my hand. She then grabbed my other hand and dragged me towards her home. I can't wait for you to meet my mother and father. I'm sure you'll love them. They're so nice, and they even let me decorate my own room however I like. Oh. I want to show you my room. Easy there, girl, I said as I patted the top of her head in an attempt to calm down her high levels of energy, just as I did during our time at the orphanage. Let me meet your new folks first. Heh. Sorry. I'm just so happy to see you again. Keiko softly said as we stopped by the front door. Her yellow eyes gazed at me with fondness. I missed you. +5 SP. I kept still and stared at her in stumped silence. A soft, warm feeling grew around my chest. What I felt wasn't romantic. No, this feeling was something else. It was hard to describe, it was nice. I miss Keiko-chan. Is this the young man you've been talking about nonstop? My eyebrow twitched in annoyance, and I turned to look at a middle-aged couple standing by the door. The man had well-combed brown hair with a light build. He was dressed in casual clothing well-suited to being at home. The woman beside him had black hair pulled into a low ponytail. She wore a pink blouse and a long yellow skirt hung down her legs. The couple looked away from their daughter and flinched when their eyes met my own. It seemed that they were able to quickly pick up the negative energy I was producing. Usually, it took most people a few minutes of being around me to notice. You must be Soda. It's a pleasure to finally meet you, young man. Keiko here has had nothing but wonderful things to say about you. Kiko's new mother said with a smile, seemingly getting over any of the feelings she felt about me. My name is Yoshiyuki Hana. And this here is my husband, Yoshiyuki Kenta. It's a pleasure to meet you both, I said with a slight bow of my head. It wouldn't do me any good to be disrespectful to my friend's parents. +5 SP. +5 SP. Wow, I've never seen you bow to anyone, Su-chan. How rare. I can be respectful. I just choose not to. You've grown up so much, Su-chan. I'm so proud. You do know I'm older than you, right? The Yoshiyuki couple chuckled at our conversations. I, on the other hand, was taken aback. It seems that Keiko has grown rather bold ever since she left. I missed the little girl who hid behind me whenever we had people over. Her newfound confidence was both surprising and amusing. Now then, why don't you two kids come on in? We wouldn't want the snacks Keiko worked so hard to prepare to go to waste, now do we? Mother. Don't tell Su-chan that. +10 SP. XXX. Keiko's room was a cheerful and cozy space. It perfectly reflected her vibrant and bubbly personality. After talking and getting to know Kiko's parents for around 40 minutes, I came to the conclusion that the Yoshiyuki couple were good people. Unlike most people I come across, they barely had any traces of negative emotions. Something I was able to pick up pretty easily, thanks to my abilities as a sorcerer. The two of them truly loved and cared for my friend. A fact that put me at ease. Still, I would continue having Kuro Megumi watch over her. Just to be safe. Once the Yoshiyuki couple were satisfied after asking me a multitude of questions about myself, they let Keiko and I go up to her room per her request. The walls were painted in a soft shade of sky blue and adorned with colorful posters of her favorite anime characters and bands. A large bookshelf stood against one wall, filled with several children's books and trinkets. A comfortable bed with a bright floral bedspread sat in one corner, accompanied by a plush All Might toy. The room was illuminated by fairy lights strung across the ceiling, casting a warm and inviting glow. A small desk, littered with art supplies and sketches, occupied another corner. Sitting on a chair was the All Might-themed sweater she had received all those years ago. Overall, the room exuded a sense of joy and individuality, perfectly capturing who Keiko was. You sure went wild with decorating your room, I said as I walked over to her desk, where several sketches sat. They were rough drawings of female hero costumes. Each one of them had detailed notes of what each article of the costume did or what it was made of. Seeing them caused my amused smile to melt away. With my back turned to her, Keiko nodded happily and threw herself on her bed. +5 SP. Yeah. Isn't it wonderful? I have it all to myself, and I don't have to share it. Keiko froze in her excited chattering and turned to me with a sad, regrettable expression. I'm sorry, Su-chan. I didn't. +5 SP. It's fine. I interrupted her as I sat down on her bed to lay beside her. I don't need any parents anyway. I'm incredibly self-sufficient, didn't you know? I know. But still. I feel like I'm bragging when I show off my room and my parents. Ow. Why did you hit me with my own pillow? Because you're being stupid, I said as I turned to her with a grin. I'm happy you're happy. So don't worry about little old me. I'm doing just fine. +10 SP. Keiko remained silent and brushed her fingers on the bandage on my neck. Then what's this? Are you still getting into fights? No. I sat up and looked over at her desk, where all her hero costume sketches sat. I see you still want to be a hero. I said in order to change the subject. Keiko quickly sat up and covered my eyes with her hands. I thought I told you that was a bad idea. No, don't look. I'm still working on them. Keiko said with an embarrassed blush as I chuckled. And, of course, I still want to be a hero. After all, I want to be just like All Might. I want to save people from danger with a smile like he did when he saved me. I grabbed her hands and removed them from my face with a sigh. Standing up, I walked over to her desk and placed a hand on her hoodie. Being a hero was something she always talked about when she still lived with me at the orphanage. Then again, that's pretty much what every kid talks about when they're young and full of dreams. However, unlike most kids with weak and lame abilities, Keiko's quirk actually had some potential. Her quirk was called Loving Shield. Loving shield allowed her to summon barriers or walls of blue energy capable of blocking anything as strong as her. What powers her quirk is her abnormally high levels of positive emotions. However, if her happy emotional state gets disrupted or shaken, her energy barriers will grow weaker or break. At the moment, her quirk is rather weak due to her young age and inexperience, but with enough time, I knew that her ability had the potential to grow to be rather powerful. Do you think I can't do it? Keiko asked shyly, her hands on her knees as she looked down at her pink carpet. Her usually bright and happy yellow eyes were now dimmer. I once again found myself sighing and brushed back my hair. It's not that. You know how I feel about heroes. It's a dangerous profession, Keiko. +5 SP. I know that. But I know I can do it. Keiko said with a grin, her previous shyness gone as if it was never there. She then clapped her hands like a certain blonde alchemist and held her palms to me. I watched as a barrier of blue energy half her size burst to life in front of her. See? I've been working really hard on my quirk. Try and get through it like before. It's true. This is a lot bigger and solid than before. I reached out and placed a hand on the barrier. Touching it didn't hurt or burn me. The only thing I felt from touching it was a nice, cool feeling. Slowly, I began to push the barrier with my natural strength. The barrier didn't budge. I then tried again with my CE and saw the barrier begin to shake. Seeing that, I stopped pushing. Not bad. The last time I did this, my hand was able to push through it as if it were made of jello. +5 SP. Heh. Keiko smiled and released her barrier in favor of placing her hands on her hips. See? I've gotten a lot stronger. I'll definitely be a great hero someday. Images of destruction and mutant humanoid creatures popped into my mind. A light blue-haired man with the power to crumble anything he touched crept up behind Keiko and slowly began to reach out to her face, ready to decay her to dust. In a few years from now, Keiko will probably be in the same year as Midoriya when he joins UA. If she does make it in, will she be placed in 1A? No, I doubt it. At most, she'll probably make it to a general education course like Shinso. As long as she stays away from Class 1A, then she won't be at the heart of everything. She'll be fine. I wanted to tell her to quit. To give up her dream of being a hero. It would only get her killed. She wasn't part of the main cast, and that meant she didn't have any plot armor like the rest of Class 1A. Keiko could very well die as one of the background characters. But if I told her to give up now, would that be fair to her? Was I really going to risk our relationship based on my paranoid what-ifs? Yeah. You're right. I forced my face to smile at her as I wrapped the All Might themed sweater around her shoulders. You'll definitely become a great hero someday. I'm sure of it. +20 SP. Keiko looked at me with wide, happy eyes before wrapping her arms around my shoulders as she laughed and jumped. I was glad that her face was pressed into my shoulder. It meant she didn't have to see the frown on my face. Dash. Thank you for the 600 PS. I hope you enjoyed today's bonus chapter. Until next time. 49 comments 0 vote. Pissed. Download the app for additional rewards. More events, more perks. Winning you more free perks. Download now. gaff_00_TW. Download app now. No. 14 Meet the protagonist. AN. I have 2 quick announcements. I've been looking back and rereading Chapter 8, and I've been mulling over my decision to have Soda experiment on the criminals he takes down to awaken cursed energy within them. At the time, I didn't notice how large of a leap his character made, from being against killing to going Orochimaru on people. My bad, lol. Thus, I have decided to remove that part of the story. So like how there's no war in Ba Sing Se, that part of the story never happened. Zoo please read on with that in mind. The next announcement is that I added some artwork to the auxiliary chapter to give you all a better idea of what Soda, along with Keiko, looks like. It's a bit spoilery, but we'll get there. Currently have up to chapter 21 written. Dash. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow across the city of Musudafu, I found myself walking through its bustling streets to get my mind off my earlier talk with Keiko. The fading light painted the buildings around me in soft hues of pink and gold, creating a mesmerizing backdrop for the silhouettes of different shaped people going about their evening activities. As I walked, my mind was busy thinking back to the events of today as Zyko gurgled on my shoulder. You'll definitely become a great hero someday. I'm sure of it. The words I said to Keiko continued to replay in my head. I couldn't help but wonder if I made the right call to tell her that. But the large, bright smile she gave me dissuaded those negative thoughts of mine. Fucking softy. After a while, I grew tired of the busy streets and changed course to stroll through a nearby residential area. I gazed up to see a canvas of pastel colors, with wisps of clouds catching the last rays of sunlight that made up the sky. Boom. I turned my head to the sound of a hushed bang that sounded like an explosion. Curious, I began heading in the direction of the sound. As I grew closer, I was able to hear the fading sounds of laughter. Finally, I came upon a small neighborhood park and saw a green, bushy, haired figure looking down at a smoking notebook standing at the center of the park. My eyes grew wide as I watched an 11-year-old Midoriya Izuku pick up his charred notebook with a sad expression on his dirty, teary-eyed face. Holy crap. It's Sheep Boy. I mean Izuku. Izuku sighed and walked over to one of the swinging chairs on the swing set. With a sigh, the boy took a seat and slowly swung back and forth. He was so lost in his little world that he had yet to notice me at the park entrance. Seeing my opportunity to interact with the main character of this world, I walked over to the swing set and took a seat beside him. You know, I suddenly said, catching Izuku off guard. You shouldn't be playing with fire here. +10 SP. Oh. No. I wasn't playing with matches or anything like that. Izuku squeezed his ruined notebook nervously as he looked between me and it. This was because. Easy there, kid. I'm not gonna tell on ya. I chuckled and began swinging back and forth. Zyko gurgled in glee as the wind stroked its face. The name's Soda. Shimizu Soda. Kid. But you don't look that much older than me. Izuku muttered and then perked up, suddenly remembering his manners. Ah. I'm Midoriya Izuku. It's nice to meet you, Shimizu-san. Just Soda is fine, Midoriya. I swung lazily and smiled at the soon-to-be nervous wreck. So, why did you ruin your notebook? You got some dirty stuff in there or something. +10 SP. Izuku's face burned bright red as he quickly shook his head. What? No. Nothing like that. It's just my hero notes. Who? Hero notes? You mind if I take a look? +20 SP. Izuku pressed his lips together and seemed unsure of what to do. In the end, he nodded meekly and tentatively handed me his ruined notebook. I looked down and saw the notebook's title, Hero Analysis for the Future Number 5. I smiled, seeing one of his famous notebooks in person, and began to flip through the pages. Despite the notebook's ruined cover, the pages within were still in pretty good condition. Pages and pages of detailed notes and drawings on heroes of old and new filled the book. It was pretty impressive. Especially considering he was still around 11 years old. Wow. This is some pretty impressive stuff, Midoriya. I said as I looked up at his surprised face. Really impressive. You got some analysis quirk or something. +30 SP. Holy so much. Is this the point potential that comes with interacting with the main cast? No. Nothing like that. I just really love heroes, so I pay a lot of attention to them. Heh. Izuku looked away from me with his hand on his neck, his body tense. It's sorta like my hobby. He thinks I'm going to make fun of him. I looked away from him and flipped through a few more pages to eventually find a large section dedicated to All Might. Dang, he hasn't even started middle school yet, and he's already like this. That's so. Then what's your quirk? I said with an expectant look and watched as he froze. His green eyes shifted back and forth to look anywhere else but at me. +30 SP. I'm quirkless. Izuku softly said in a small voice with his eyes tightly shut. Despite my issues with the Midoriya Izuku from the original series, seeing him in person and acting in such a way left a bad taste in my mouth. I couldn't help but be reminded of my little brother from my past life. He and Izuku were pretty similar. Izuku jumped slightly when I placed my hand on his shoulder. I see. Well, that makes two of us then. Izuku's eyes grew large at my revelation. Because I'm quirkless as well. +100 SP. Really? Izuku shouted as he jumped to his feet. I mean, it's just that I haven't met anyone else who was quirkiness. I didn't mean to be rude, Shimizu-san, I mean, Sota-san. I chuckled at his reaction and waved his worries away. It's fine, Izuku. I get it. At least now I know why you were acting like a scared kitten. People can be pretty mean to us just for not having powers. I then held out his notebook and stood up as well. Is that why your notebook got burnt? Someone pick on you. +20 SP. No, Kachan was just. He lost control of his quirk. That's all. If you say so. I said with a tone that told him I didn't buy what he said, causing him to look away. We may be quirkless, Izuku, but that doesn't mean we're worthless. You wanna know what I did when someone looked down on me just because I was born with an extra joint in my dumb toe? Intrigued, Izuku turned back to me and looked at me expectantly. I kicked his ass. You what? +40 SP. This kid's reactions are hilarious. Oh, yeah. I flexed both of my arms and grinned at him. He had this quirk that gave him the ability to make any one of his limbs super strong. He thought that made him better than me, so he thought it was a good idea to smack my lunch on the ground while his little friends laughed. Unfortunately for him, I stood on business and slammed him onto the ground. Sure, I got suspended for 2 weeks, but that shitstain never bothered me again. +30 SP. And no way. You really managed to beat somebody with a quirk. I can't believe it. Izuku said with an amazed look as he furiously scribbled into his notebook. You said his quirk let him increase the power behind any one limb, correct? Just how much power could? Well, one thing is for sure, Izuku is definitely a quirk nerd. I shook my head as Izuku muttered away theories and ideas based on my short description of what's his face's quirk. I rolled my eyes at him and grabbed his shoulder to stop his muttering. You're missing the point here, Izuku, I said and took my hand back. What I'm trying to tell you is that just because we're quirkless, it doesn't mean we should just let those with quirks walk over us. Kinda like this Kachan asshole who burnt your book. It's not like that. Kachan is my friend. Really. +30 SP. This kid sure is delusional. No wonder he turned out the way he did if this is how he thinks now. Fine, fine. If you say so, broccoli boy. I then pointed over at his notebook and smiled. Quirk analysis for the future. That means you wanna be a hero, right? A hero, Izuku whispered. His eyes were both hopeful and downtrodden. Quirkless people can't be heroes, right? If this was a shonen anime, which it is, this is the moment I give Izuku the words he's been waiting to hear ever since that dickhead of a doctor told him he was quirkless. Hopefully, all those hours of watching Naruto will pay off now. Eraserhead, Sir Night-Eye, Midnight, and several other heroes mainly use their hand-to-hand skills and hard-earned strength to be heroes. Sure. Fancy quirks that help them do their jobs, but that's nothing some impressive support gear can't cover for. I said as I looked down at my feet and racked my brain to find the right words to say to this sad little boy. I was never the best at giving speeches or talking. So, I hoped that I was making sense of his overthinking butt. So why not? Why can't you be a hero? As long as you put in the work and train yourself to the bone, I don't see why not. Don't let those losers or anyone else put you down, man. I mean, look at this notebook of yours. It's some impressive stuff. +200 SP. Ka-ching. Maybe I'm not so bad at talk no just you after all. Do you really think so? Izuku whispered, large tears swelling in his eyes. Can I truly be a hero, too? Sorry, All Might. I'm stealing your line here. I need them points. Papa needs himself the limitless. Yes, Izuku. You can be a hero. +500 SP. Congratulations on earning 500 SP in one go. You have unlocked a new tier. The Platinum Reward tier. 3,500 SP will allow you to pull one time for a 50% chance to pull a Platinum tier reward. I ignored Izuku's little sobs in favor of looking at the new system screens in surprise. Slowly, a large, hungry grin grew on my face as I turned to Izuku. Looks like I just found my new golden goose, my new friend. 45 comments, 0 vote. No. 15 stolen street cred. You have pulled Ryomen Sukuna's poison immunity. Rank. Gold. An excellent pull. Indeed. A very useful passive. Gentlemen, I believe it's time. I looked around at my 4 clones as we all sat on a random round table I found on someone's rooftop balcony. Zyko sat on my shoulder as usual. A pair of Gojo's shades rested over its derpy eyes. We were all dressed in my jujutsu uniform as we looked at one another with varying expressions. You mean the platinum pull? Clone A said to Clone B as he intertwined his fingers and leaned forward on the table. A high risk, high reward pull. It's a risky option. Ha. What are you? Pussy. I say we go all in. Clone C slapped his hand on the table as he leaned back on his chair. So what if we lose all our points on the off chance we don't pull a reward? What life without some risk? You sound ridiculous. We have a better chance at pulling for a gold tier reward. At least with that, we have 4 chances to win something. Not just one. Clone D shook his head as he crossed his arms. My expression was set in a look that said, I can't believe we're having this conversation. Boss. I say we go for it. Clone B abruptly stood up and turned to me with a large smile. I say we do it. This could be our chance to get one of the 4 techniques on our wish list. Just think about it. We have a 50% chance of pulling the Limitless, the 10 Shadows, Shrine, or Star Rage. Let's become op. I hummed as I looked out at the night sky. The city lights in the background shined brightly. Perhaps even encouragingly. You all had strong arguments and sound points. With all your opinions in mind, I've come to a decision, gentlemen. I say we go for the platinum pull. 2 out of the 4 clones cheered while the other 2 sucked their teeth in annoyance. I reached forward and grabbed the floating gacha machine's dial. Use 3500 SP. I slowly twisted the dial as my clones stood behind me, their faces nervous but excited. We watched as the machine rumbled and glowed a bright silver as the plastic prize balls danced enticingly behind the machine's glass case. None of us breathed as we watched the lid finally snap open to reveal. You have pulled Fushiguro Megumi's cursed technique, the 10 Shadows. Rank. Platinum. Yes. We did it, boys. We made it. I never doubted this choice for a second. Stop the cap. Suddenly, several loud bangs shook the door behind us as we all stopped our celebration. We all turned to look at the door I barricaded with a chair. Who the hell is out there? I'm calling the police. A loud, angry man shouted as he continued to bang repeatedly on his door. Shit, no time to experiment, I said as all my clones melted away into CE. I spun on my heel and jumped off the roof balcony as the old geezer continued to yell. Leaping from rooftop to rooftop, my face broke into a grin as I raised my hands to make a hand seal of a dog. Divine dogs. 2 loud howls filled the chilly night air as my mad laughter followed behind them, causing dozens of once happily sleeping people to wake up in annoyance at the loud noise. XXX. General Pav. A man with long black hair looked around his surroundings with dry but calculating eyes. He was dressed in a black jumpsuit with a utility belt around his waist. On his feet were black boots, and a white rope-like cloth sat coiled around his neck. The man's name was Aizawa Shota, otherwise known as Eraserhead. Any idea on what happened here, Eraserhead? Aizawa turned to look at another fellow hero who had a black mask over his eyes and an attire similar to the armor Spartans would wear, including a green hooded cape and a black shirt that appeared to be stitched down the middle with a red pattern. This was the pro-hero, Crust. A few, Aizawa muttered as he looked around the large, dark warehouse. The abandoned warehouse Aizawa, Crust, and several police officers stood within loomed large, its weathered bricks crumbling and stained by years of neglect. Rusting metal beams jut out at odd angles, while shattered windows create a haunting mosaic of jagged glass. The air is thick with dust and blood, and the faint smell of mold lingers, hinting at the dampness that has seeped in over time. Inside, the vast open space is filled with remnants of its former life. Rows of empty shelves and scattered debris litter the cold concrete floor. Sunlight streams through the broken windows, casting eerie shadows that dance across the walls. Graffiti tags splash colors against the drab interiors. However, what stood out the most in the warehouse were the several bloodied and bruised criminals strewn around everywhere, with even more outside being treated by first responders. Slowly, okay. I got him. Aizawa turned to see 3 police officers slowly bring down one of the unconscious men onto the ground. The man they had retrieved had been hanging upside down with a rope attached to his legs from one of the rafters above. Crust nodded in approval at the officers' teamwork and walked over to one of the large tables at the center of the warehouse. Stacked neatly on one another were several bags of narcotics and stolen support gear meant for heroes. Standing around the table were 2 officers taking inventory and pictures of the gathered contraband. Grabbing a bag full of colorful pills, Crust carefully inspected its contents before looking over to Aizawa. Ecstasy. Crust said before placing the bag back. Seeing that all this stuff is still hanging around, I'm guessing this is the work of vigilantes. Possibly, Aizawa said as he crouched beside 2 empty duffel bags. He reached into one of the bags and pulled out a 10,000 yen bill. A deal gone wrong, then. If this was vigilantes, they made off with 2 or more bags full of money. Eraserhead, Crust. One of the police officers, a woman with brown hair tied into a ponytail, said as she walked over to Aizawa and Crust. One of them just woke up. Aizawa and Crust turned to one another and nodded before following the officer. The 3 walked out of the warehouse, where several ambulances were parked and paramedics were treating the recovered criminals. The man had deep green skin and blue eyes. His hair was extraordinarily spiky and non-kept, matching his loose attire. The man was covered in bruises and even bite marks resembling that of a large dog or wolf. Demon. It was a demon. The green-skinned man muttered in fear as he trembled. He then to the 2 pro-heroes with almost a manic gaze. That thing came out of the shadows and took us all out. Slow down, Aizawa said as he raised his hands to try and calm the erratic man down. Take a breath and calm down. Now, explain what happened here tonight. Who attacked you all? The man held his head as his eyes began to tear up in fright and trauma. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go down, man. We were supposed to make the deal and get our money. But then that thing showed up and defeated us like we were nothing. The man said as he closed his eyes as if to keep away the mysterious boogeyman. And that laugh. That demon was laughing as it attacked us all one by one. Like this was a game. Aizawa and Crust exchanged disturbed glances at each other. The nearby officers and paramedics, who were listening intently, began to grow concerned as they listened to the man's story. Did you happen to get a name? Crust said softly, not wanting to frighten the scared and traumatized man any further. The man froze and turned to him and whispered. He called himself Sukuna. The king of curses. XXX. Shimizu Soda Pav. There's one fundamental rule for interacting with others. You know what that is, you pile of dorks. 13x5 equals plus 65 SP. I threw another chip into my mouth and looked down at the pile of bodies composed of middle schoolers. They all wore the same school uniform as me, but unlike me, theirs were dirty, bloodied, and even smelled of piss. The pile of students, some mutants and some not, beneath me all groaned and moaned in pain while a purple-haired student opened one of his unbruised eyes as he struggled to breathe from under me. What are you going on about, you quirkless ga? Plus 5 SP. Shish. I'm doing a thing here. I said as my right fist found a new home in his stomach. Now, where was I? Ah, that's right. The one fundamental rule for interacting with others is a simple one. I won't kill you, so in return, please don't kill me either. Substitute any word for kill. The point is drawing a line so you do not infringe on others. In order for both to exist together, they need to honor that. Or something like that. Do you guys get it? Not really. I thought he was quirkless. How is he so strong? I see can't breath. I sighed and threw the half-eaten bag of chips at its original owner's face, who happened to be at the bottom of the pile that acted as my meat throne. Yeah, me neither. Sorry, Megumi. I failed you. I stood up and climbed slowly down the pile of middle schoolers. Once I was back on the ground, I looked over at my creation and took a picture. Now, a sight like this would have normally brought attention to the surrounding student body. Thankfully, we were all on the south side of the school, away from all prying eyes and teachers. How did things end up like this? I hear you asking. Things 1, 2, and 3, from where I helped out what's-his-face a while back, had a bone to pick with me from when I slapped them silly. So, in retaliation, they gathered up a large group of their scummy friends to teach me a lesson. It was a brief and easy lesson. It took all of 3 minutes for me to kick all their asses without sending them to the hospital. Hopefully, they're quick learners, so I didn't have to do this again. Oi, you three. I pointed at the 3 bozos from before, causing them all to whimper loudly. Why yes. The 3 shouted. +5 SP. +5 SP. +5 SP. This is your last warning. Mess with me again, and I'll rip your balls off. Oh, also, don't mess with that guy anymore, either. Ka whatever, too. You mean, Kagawa? Yeah, him. In fact, I better not hear you 3 or any of you in that pile bullying anyone in this school. Got me. I said in a raised voice as I lifted my pristine knuckles at the large pile of middle schoolers. We understand. The loud, scared reply came from them all. 13x5 equals +65 SP. I nodded and walked away from the meat pile to begin heading to work. Unaware of the several hidden onlookers watching from their hiding areas. As I walked, I wondered how long I would continue working for Minato. Money wasn't much of a problem anymore due to my book sales and recently acquired bags of cash, so there was little point in working for the low wage Minato was paying me. But if I did quit, then May and I would have less time to hang out or for me to earn some SP. What to do? I walked straight through the crowds of city folk, their bodies parting the way like the Red Sea. Confusion and nervousness were across their faces as they turned to me as I passed them. Fuck it. I'll keep working there. I owe Minato for the chance after all. I nodded as I reached the street where Hatsume's mechanical repairs and such was located. Yeah, that's the reason. It's not because I enjoy being around the crazy tornado that is Hatsume Mei and not being alone. Yeah, the cope is real. I walked through the store's front door and heard the familiar bell chime. What do we get going on today, Hatsume-san? Minato grinned at me as he looked up from the compound motor he was working on. Ah, Soda. You're here. Hataki-san brought in a deep fryer from his restaurant, which has been giving him trouble. Can you take a soda? I braced myself as a blur of pink crashed into me. I looked over my shoulder to see May's smiling face covered in dirt and grime. It's ready. Baby number 18 is ready. You have to come look. +5 SP. Hello to you too, May. I said as May let me go in favor of grabbing my hand to pull me off towards the back of the shop. Minato sighed and stood in her way, a dirty rag in his hands. Not now, May. Soda has some work to do first. Nah. My baby is so much more interesting than that. Soda is here to work, May. Not to help you invent future lawsuits. I resent that. I laughed at the father and daughter duo as they bickered about how I would spend my time today. May and I were so caught up in the moment that we didn't realize our fingers were intertwined. An. Quick question. Do you all want to see Soda go to UA? I've been seeing a lot of comments suggesting he go there. Or should he take a different path? Until next time. 63 comments 0 vote. No. 16 barking Pomeranian. I lazily moved left and right from the ridiculously slow, uncoordinated punches my green cash cow threw. I had my hands behind my back as I spun to the side and stuck out my foot, causing Izuku to trip forward. Ah. Izuku grunted as he rolled on the floor. This may be harder than I thought, I muttered as Izuku stood up. His clothes were covered in dust and dirt while a few stray leaves from the trees around us poked out from his bushy hair. Up in the tree branches watching us were 3 crows hidden within the leaves. As they watched, their little heads scanned around the area. The green one should just give up. He's got 2 left feet. Nah, he'll get it soon. Salmon. I ran a hand through my hair and watched as Izuku patted his clothes. Once he gathered himself, he took a deep breath and rushed me again. As I watched, a lone thought popped into my head. This kid is uncoordinated as heck. Izuku, stop throwing all your weight behind your punches. I looked around the public park we were in and smacked another sloppy punch of his. I then tapped his forehead with my 2 pointer fingers, pushing him back onto the ground. Gah. I'm trying. I'm just not good at this. All Might makes it look so easy. He beats the villains up in 1 punch. Izuku said as he remained seated on the floor. He then smiled and punched the air. He would just yell smash and bam. The day is saved. Yeah, but he's All Might. He can punch a hole in the atmosphere. I walked over to him and picked him up from the scruff of his shirt like a dog. You, on the other hand, can barely do 10 push-ups without looking like you're about to pass out. Sorry. I sighed and placed my hands on his shoulders. Don't be sorry, Izuku. Be better. Don't sue me, Santa Monica. +50 SP. Izuku looked at me with wide, awestruck eyes. Immediately, he nodded with renewed vigor and raised his arms into a poorly executed boxing stance. A far cry from the stance I taught him. But hey, he'll get it eventually. You see, for the past month or so, I've taken it upon myself to help my golden goose, my friend, to train up his skills and strength. My goal was to have him be in a much better state than in canon for when he receives All Might's quirk. It's the least I can do. He was the reason I got the 10 shadows. That and I need to earn back my points after losing 7,000 SP on those 2 failed platinum pulls. Who knew my luck would run dry after that first pull? Damn, gotcha. You unforgiving bitch. Okay, let's take things slow. I stepped back and placed my hands behind my back. This time, focus on your footwork and balance. Just keep up with me, and don't worry about landing a hit. Just stay on your feet, and don't let me trip you. Got it. Got it. For the next half hour, Izuku's performance has taken a turn for the better. This time, he focused his attention on staying on his feet and maintaining his balance. The times he did begin to lose his focus, I simply smacked his face lightly to bring back his focus. We continued on like this until his relatively short stamina finally ran out. With Izuku panting on the ground, I strolled through several trees to the area where I had left the red cooler I had brought and grabbed 2 water bottles. As I closed the cooler's lid, Chromaki sent me a vision of 3 newcomers approaching Izuku and my location. Walking towards us were Bakugo and 2 of his followers. It seems it's time for me to finally meet that headache. Thanks to Chromaki, Crow Inamaki, and Crow Panda, who was a crow and not a panda, I always had a clear view of my surroundings thanks to their overwatch. Those 3 made it almost impossible for anyone to sneak up on me without some sneaking quirk or super speed. What the hell? Deku. The hell are you doing out here? Kei-ka-chan. Wow, it really is Deku. That's what I get for choosing the local public park near Izuku's apartment. I rolled my eyes and walked back to where I had left Izuku and found the spiky-haired, somehow fan favorite, angry Pomeranian himself. Bakugo Katsuki. Oh, and his 2 cronies, too. My opinion of Bakugo Katsuki from the original series was that I didn't like him. The guy was an asshole to Izuku just because of his dreams and his quirklessness. The guy even told the green bean to kill himself. Not to mention the way he treats others due to his perceived greatness. And don't give that, oh, but he had so much pressure on him to succeed, bullshit. That doesn't give you a pass to treat those around you like trash. But to be fair, I would give this Bakugo a chance to prove my preconceived opinions of his main timeline character wrong. Bakugo was glaring at Izuku with annoyance as his hands twitched. Behind him was a long-haired boy with gray hair and droopy eyes, while the other boy had medium-length, unkempt black hair. You following me around? Is that it, Deku? And no, that's not it, Kachan. I was here training. Deku said in a meek voice as he tried to maintain eye contact with Bakugo. The 2 cronies behind the blonde chuckled as they watched Izuku shrink into himself. Training. Don't tell me you still think you can be a hero. I told you that a quirkless nobody like you has no chance of ever being one. So give up already. Bakugo screamed as he got all up into Izuku's personal space as small explosions popped in his right hand. Never mind, fuck this guy. Ka-chan, Okay, I walked out from behind the tree I was standing behind, surprising the 3 newcomers. That's enough, you barking Pomeranian. The hell did you say? Bakugo yelled as he ignored Izuku and stomped over to me. He was trying to look intimidating, but seeing an 11-year-old throw a tantrum was anything but intimidating. Who the hell do you think you are, you extra? Yesh. This is grating. Kachan, wait. He's my. Shut it, Deku. I'm talking here. Izuku flinched as Bakugo turned to him with an annoyed, angry scowl. I rolled my eyes at Bakugo's constant screaming and rubbed the side of my head. Man, you're so damn loud. Why is that? You hard of hearing or something? I said as I walked over to Izuku and held out the water bottle in my hand. Izuku looked down at the cool beverage and accepted it numbly. Bakugo was stunned that I seemingly ignored and insulted him at once. Get lost, will ya? My friend and I are working on some stuff. Now shoo. Plus 150 SP. Plus 120 SP. Plus 10 SP. Plus 10 SP. The two cronies at the back looked stunned and turned to one another in silent disbelief. Izuku was looking back and forth between Bakugo and me with large, worried eyes. What's with these kids? They're treating Bakugo like the grand poobah. I grinned as the sounds of repeating pops and cracks rippled behind me. I looked over to Bakugo and saw his face burn red with rage as his eyes shrank into slits. You bastard. I'll kill you. Bakugo dashed toward me as fast as he could with his right arm outstretched. His palm was glowing with small explosions as he swung. Smack. You know, kid. Using your quirk on others for no reason isn't allowed. I said as Bakugo's face was half turned while a red handprint rested on his cheek from my slap. Slowly, he turned to look at me with wide, unbelieving eyes. What's the matter? Cat got your tongue. Plus 100 SP. Growling in rage, Bakugo ran right at me with both arms flying forward, palms pointed right at me. Wham. Huh. Bakugo blinked as he stared up at the trees and sky from his spot on the floor. This is weirdly cathartic. What's just happened? The boy with long gray hair whispered as he and his friend stood frozen in place. The messy black-haired boy shook his head and rubbed his eyes. I blinked and then, Bakugo-san was on the floor. Kachan. Izuku uttered as he stared at me and Bakugo in a delirium. It was as if he was watching something that couldn't be possible. Hey, Kachan. You ite. I looked down at the blinking blonde with a large, mocking smile, my hands in my pockets. How does it feel to have been beaten by someone who's quirkless? Technically speaking. Plus 170 SP. What I had done was perform a quick and easy over-the-hip toss on Bakugo in the blink of an eye. Making it seem, to the untrained eye, as if Bakugo somehow just teleported on the floor. Quirkless. You. Bakugo muttered as he slowly stood to his feet. Quirkless. Quirkless. He raged as he glared at me with fury. As if I would get beaten by some quirkless loser. Plus 200 SP. Let's see, here we have someone with an okay quirk that can make explosions, I said while pointing at Bakugo with a lazy smile. I then pointed at myself. And here, we have a quirkless nobody with no potential. There's no way I could have beaten you. Isn't that what you're thinking? I walked a few feet away and held my hands up with a lazy expression. Come on, boy. My two hands are all I need to wrangle you. Die. Bakugo dashed toward me with rage-enhanced speed as his hands glowed from the accumulated sweat in his palms. Just as he was about to fire an explosion at point-blank range at my chest and face, my hands flew up and grabbed his wrists. Pushing them outwards, his built-up sweat exploded beside me uselessly. Even after he released his explosions, I held his arms firmly in place in my vice grip as he tried to pull away. Seeing the kid jerk around like a trapped animal, I felt a pang of sympathy for the young kid. See? I said with a calm expression. I leaned in close to his stunned face and whispered so only he would hear me. Learn from this, Bakugo. If you keep looking down on everyone else, you'll never be able to see your own weaknesses. I leaned my head back and smashed my forehead into his own. Bakugo grunted in pain and fell onto his butt as his hands flew up to hold the growing welt on his head. Ah. Plus 200 SP. Don't worry. I was careful to hold back. With my piece said, I cracked my neck and walked over to Izuku. Let's call it a day, Izuku. How about we go for some ice cream? My treat. I wrapped my arm around the stunned Izuku and led him out of the park after I grabbed my cooler. All the while, a frozen but enraged Bakugo stared at our backs with unreasonable hate in his eyes. His two friends. Followers. Whatever theory were too nervous and scared to say a thing and merely kept as silent as they could. I hope you all enjoyed today's bonus chapter. I know we didn't reach the PS requirement of 600 for it, but what the hell, here's my gift to you all for being such great readers with funny comments. Just a heads up, I'm not planning on doing the cliché thing and bashing Bakugo. So look forward to his future character arc. Lower half circle. Until next time.